one of the questions I'm sure you're going to get asked, how much is that going to cost me? Like, and of course,
100%.
Now that's a difficult thing for you guys to have to answer, right? But I'm sure you get the question.
So I get the question a lot, and quite often I start with, if you get 3 different companies out to quote a job, you're going to get 3 different prices.
Yeah.
So this is not a quote or anything like that, but
Don't
I can
hold
give
me
you,
to it, but I'll give you a guide.
Yeah, based on my experience,
Yep.
it's likely to cost in this range.
Yep.
So, if you've got a carpenter and an apprentice come out to do a job, it's going to cost X amount. If you call a big building company and they've got a factory and they've got managers and site managers and all that sort of stuff, it's going to be a completely different price. So it's a bit of a price guide, but if you're getting work done, it's always worth getting a few quotes and making sure that
it's also the extent too. Like I find with bathrooms is a big one.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, how much is it going to cost to fix the bathroom?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's just the shower.
Yeah.
And it might be like $4,000.
Yeah.
But that's just fixing the shower, so it's functional.
Yeah.
Everything else is going to look exactly the same. So you get this sort of band as well of like what people's expectations are.
That's problematic as well, because if it's a 25-year-old bathroom, you're never going to find tiles.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So it's like
so you're just
the
going to have that
client's
conversation.
expectations.
Yeah. But as well as that, the report shouldn't have any cost estimates within it.
No.
It's something that within our Australian standard we work towards clearly stipulates, and which I've found just speaking to inspectors around Australia can be difficult at times, especially for the blokes in Tassie, because the contract of sale down there has a defect limit to exit the sale of a home. So they're kind of forced into giving an estimate, but they're not allowed to give cost estimates in the report. So it's this
That's bizarre.
sort of secondary scope of works. They kind of
unintended consequences associated with that.
Yes.
Like in terms of, how do you? That's very hard to do. All right, we'll keep it, but thank you, because we're obviously a show that goes around Australia. So for those people in Tasmania, read up on that in terms of what that might be about. Now, I also wanted to let's get through a couple of quick ones.
Okay.
What does an inspection usually cost? Around the price that you might want to pay, the ranges.
I think a fair and reasonable range for a building and timber pest inspection would start at around as low as $650 up to probably $800.
Yep.
For
That's
standard.
a good guide.
I feel like that's a comfortable number.
Yep. Now, of course, you just said timber pest inspections and so forth. There are obviously other inspections like electrical and a few other areas that you can go into. They would be extra because you guys can't do electrical.
Correct.
No.
That's right. So again, for the beginners out there,
Plumbing and electrical are both certified trades with their own inspectors.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so if you've got an old property that looks like it's got old wiring in it and that comes up in the building and pest inspection, that would probably be one of the recommendations to get further investigations. I see those in the reports that you guys produce. So that's good. Now, I want to get to the next one, which is not all inspectors are equal. We mentioned it before in regards to whether they're a licensed builder or whether they're qualified or whatever. How does that work? How do I, or is there a quick rule of thumb that should just wash out all the people that I'm looking at? Obviously, they need to be a member of the association. We'd probably say that, Myles.
Yeah, of course, definitely, most definitely.
But is there any sort of inspectors that we shouldn't necessarily look at?
The first question I would ask if you're calling up an inspector is, are you properly insured?
Perfect.
Do you have professional indemnity insurance? And what are your qualifications? What's your background? Because as Myles suggested earlier, it's not regulated.
Yep.
So if to get insurance, you've got to actually prove to the insurance company that you've got the relevant experience in the industry, which is good. The other point to that is in the REIV contract, which you'd be all over. If there's an issue with the building and the purchaser wants to pull out, then you need to be a registered building contractor, an architect or an engineer for them to accept that report to allow the sale not to go through. So the two questions I'd be asking, are you properly insured and are you a registered builder?
100%. Something I want to add to that as well is within the contract of sale, it specifically stipulates a building inspector, registered building inspector. What people need to be aware of is a registered building inspector is somebody that does mandatory inspections. So someone that, brand new house, there's building science behind it. That's acceptable, that's not acceptable. So they just do slabs, frames and stuff like that. So when people talk about being a building inspector, the pre-purchase industry is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Whole different different world.
And I'm assuming that's consistent, in different states and territories.
Most
right?
definitely.
Because, again, it's important to note that obviously for those who are beginning in this journey, that lands titles is a state legislation. It's not a federal legislation. So there are nuances around, different types of registrations and regulations and licensing in different states and territories. So again, make sure you Google that to understand that. A couple of other quick fire questions. Can a buyer attend the building inspection with you?
It does draw out the process of the inspection,
Yes.
but I encourage people to come at the back end of the inspection.
Okay.
So, I've spent an hour on site and I've familiarised myself with the property and I understand what's going on. The client comes at the back end of the inspection, they have a bit of a look around, and then we have a really good chat. And if there's any issues, we can actually point them out and just have some really good dialogue there. That's my best case scenario. Sometimes when you're talking to people over the phone, they can't necessarily visualise it.
Yeah.
Pictures tells 1,000 words. Like if you can point something out and show them how it works.
If your inspector's willing to have you out on site, well, you've chosen a good inspector.
That's where I was going to go with that.
Because
if there's a building inspector who doesn't want you out on site because it slows them down, well, I want my inspector to be thorough.
Yes.
Because if I do find anything that is wrong, I want to be aware of it before I say yes on the contract or go through with the sale.
Having said that, I've had clients come out and they've been there from the start, and we take lots of photos to put in the report and all that sort of stuff. And on one of my jobs, every photo I took, the person was standing behind me going, "What are you taking a photo of?" So that
I couldn't think of anything worse.
So I do like the idea of turning up at the latter end of it. Let them do their work.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't have surgeons operating on you with someone on their shoulder going, "Oh, what are you cutting, that vein for?" or whatever.
Yeah.
Please just let them do their work. Let them cook.
Yep.
Is that the new sort of
100%, yeah.
language?
So by the time we get to the back end, we can just drag them in, give them the tour.
Yep.
They can ask as many questions as they want.
Yeah.
Give clarity, saves a phone call at the back end, get the report, make an informed decision.